Imagine a first-grade classroom. The smell of crayons and glue. The sound of children's voices, eager and bright. It's a place of ABCs and finger paintings, of safety and innocence. But on January 6, 2023, inside Richneck Elementary School in Newport News, Virginia, that safety was shattered by a single deafening gunshot. A 6-year-old boy, a child who should have been learning to read, deliberately aimed a 9mm pistol at his teacher, Abigail Zwerner, and pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through her hand and into her chest. Chaos. Screams. Blood on the classroom floor. Now, a landmark $10 million lawsuit had been settled, but the money is a hollow victory. It doesn't answer the terrifying, gut-wrenching questions that still haunt this case. This wasn't a random accident. This was a deliberate act with a clear target. And tonight, we are diving deep into the dark, unresolved criminal elements of this tragedy. We are peeling back the layers of a perfect storm of negligence and unanswered questions that led a 6-year-old child to become a shooter. Because the real crime isn't just a single gunshot. It's the series of failures, the hidden secrets, and the chilling circumstances that made it possible. Who gave a first grader a loaded weapon? How did it get past every single layer of school security? Who, if anyone, taught him how to aim, how to pull a stiff 9mm trigger? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, what could possibly fester in the mind of a 6-year-old child to make him want to kill his teacher? Let's start with the gun itself. This was no toy. It was a Taurus G3C 9mm pistol, a powerful handgun designed for self-defense, with a capacity for 12 rounds of ammunition. It was legally purchased by the boy's mother. But a legally owned gun does not absolve the criminal negligence of how it was stored. The lawsuit alleged it was left unsecured and unlocked on a bedroom dresser, easily accessible to a curious child. This was the first and most critical failure. The adult responsible for that weapon failed in their most basic duty, creating the first link in a deadly chain. But a gun doesn't walk to school by itself. So, how did a 6-year-old manage to conceal a heavy, bulky firearm and sneak it into a school building? The lawsuit paints a picture of the school administration drowning in willful ignorance. This wasn't a case of a single misstep. It was a cascade of ignored warnings. On the day of the shooting, multiple school employees were warned by other students that the boy had a gun. One child told a reading specialist that the boy had shown the gun at recess and threatened to shoot him if he told. Another administrator was told directly that the boy might have a weapon in his backpack. And what was the administration's response? They didn't call a lockdown. They didn't immediately search the child's backpack. Shockingly, they allegedly decided not to search him because, and this is a direct quote from the lawsuit, his mother would be arriving soon. They prioritized avoiding an uncomfortable conversation with a parent over the literal safety of every child and staff member in that building. This is a level of negligence that borders on the criminal. The school's inaction was the second, and perhaps most infuriating, link in the chain. They had the chance to stop this tragedy, and they chose deliberately not to act. Now, we arrive at the most technically puzzling part of this entire ordeal. A Taurus G3C is not an easy gun to fire. It has a heavy trigger pull, often around 6 to 7 pounds of pressure. A 6-year-old child, on average, weighs around 45 pounds. The strength and coordination required to pull that trigger, to aim with any semblance of accuracy, is not instinctive. It is learned. Did he figure out from watching movies or playing video games? Possibly, but the chilling precision of the act, pointing the gun at his teacher and firing, raises a darker, more unsettling possibility. Had he handled a gun before? Had someone, even in a casual, reckless moment, shown him how it works? The question of who or what taught him mechanics of shooting remains a gaping, unanswered hole in this investigation. Which leads us to the final and most psychologically devastating question. Why? What could drive a child so young to such a violent, premeditated act? Court documents and the lawsuit suggest a child in the midst of an acute disability. He had a diagnosed emotional and behavioral disorder. The day of the shooting, he had been in a violent mood, allegedly choking one teacher and slamming another's cell phone into the ground. Abigail Zwerner, the victim, had reportedly been one of the few staff members who could consistently manage his behavior. Was that the reason she became the target? a twisted form of resentment from a deeply troubled child who saw her authority as a threat. The lawsuit alleges the school was warned repeatedly about his violent tendencies. They knew he was a danger to himself and others, yet they failed to provide the adequate support and staffing he desperately needed. They allowed a volatile situation to fester inside a classroom until it exploded in the most horrific way imaginable. The motive seems to be a complex, toxic brew of severe emotional disturbance in a system that utterly failed to contain it, ultimately directing its fury at the closest symbol of that system, his teacher. This is more than a story about a shooting. This is a case study in catastrophic failure. From an unsecured gun in a negligent home, to a school administration that ignored multiple, direct warnings, to a child crying out for help in the only way his broken psyche knew how. Abigail Zwerner was a victim trapped in the center of this storm. Her $10 million settlement is justice on paper, but it doesn't erase the physical and emotional scars, and it doesn't answer criminal questions that still demand answers. Who is truly culpable for placing that gun in his hands? The investigation may be over, but the court of public opinion is still in session. We need to keep asking these questions. We need to demand accountability beyond a paycheck. We need to ensure that no other teacher, no other child, ever has to experience this nightmare again. If you believe that the full truth behind this crime must be uncovered, that every person responsible must be held accountable, then you need to be part of this conversation. This channel is dedicated to pulling back the curtain on the stories that matter, the crimes that shock our conscience, and the fights for justice that are never truly over. So, do not look away. The bell button is your alert that we will not let this story die. Subscribing is your commitment to seeking the truth with us, and your comments are your voice, demanding answers in a world that too often settles for silence. The shot was fired. The lawsuit is settled. But the hunt for the complete, unvarnished truth is just beginning. Always watch. Always subscribe. Leave your theories and your thoughts in the comments below. And most importantly, turn on that bell button, because we are just getting started.